my name is Teresita Blanco, there's his sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra, Deasura. This is chapter 15, 1-5. It's coming, whispered Typhoon, and guessing what was coming, leaped to the shooter and the two prisoners under the deck, and he locked them all in his study and then returned outside. And the twins were at the helm steering the ship, and the school of sharks were trotting under the ship. And rising from beneath the ocean, the tip of the helm appeared, and then the rest, and it was a bizarre roll of ships, with the fatness of a galleon and the shape of a triangular ship, and it had 4 pairs of paddles, growing from 2 pairs of shields, and the tip of the helm had the face of a bearded man, with horns growing from behind the stag ears, and his head was twisted backwards, facing the rear of the ship. And on his forehead there was a large horn with sails attached to them, and his mouth and eyes were hollowed back, forming a gruesome living mask. And floating about the ship were tiny blue flames, and from our clothes there were glowing bait fishes, like happy cubas, goldfishes, and anchovies. And Typhoon was the first to ask, "Can we defeat it?" "Not really. Each tiny fish alone can wipe off the map of an entire city, and we can only hope that it passes by without attacking us. And it's got plenty of minions, so it's feeling confident enough to be out here in the open," I explained. "And we are preparing ourselves not to win, but to try to take down a few of them with us. If it's that bad, can't we just start saying Typhoon when the mouths of the creatures started screaming? And why is it always with the screaming and the shouting with these creatures?" And the air too was filled with a potent repulsive smell, and at the moment the reeds started shimmering blue, and then it bleached white. And the sensation was followed by the sensation of rushing water like falling through a waterfall. And when I came to, I saw that the ship was upside down, and it was not so much that we had capsized, rather that the sky was like water, and the ocean was the sky, and the roof of our new world was composed of a sharp, pale-dead corals. And I looked through the side of the ship and saw that the ship was waiting on top of our previous location. The sensation inside this area was a bit bizarre, and if you got away enough from the ship, the sensation would be similar to that of water. However, the water, for lack of a better word, felt like air, and the best way to describe it is like in a room without gravity instead of a fish tank. And contrary to my instructions, Renee went outside to have a look, and a couple of the others were also trailing behind her. "What better to stay hidden till the danger's over, don't you understand?" I snapped. "And sorry," she said, giving a queer smile, and after a brief look around, she saw enough to frighten her back inside the deck. The other curious onlookers decided to err on the side of caution, and the sharks were lazily passing near the ship, giving curious glances. And I patted a few on the nose and on the chin to show my familiarity, and you commented, "You certainly do get along well with fishes." I can see that, don't you?" I asked, and such I explained. "And our marine physiognomy is more of a gimmick and sometimes to observe nature and record any changes, and then for cultivation. And we have recorded behavior of this creature and can understand their humors, and unlike you, we maintain the animal person dichotomy, so to speak. Fishes would too have a technology and spoken word if they had opposable thumbs." I commented, "Let's not beat that old tired horse, Deasura. It all boils down to who cares," said Sasha. "I care," said Yura, "and I always wanted to speak fish, and no matter what I did or how much of their language I understood, I could never bridge the gap, you know." "Some things cannot be helped," said Sasha sadly. "Sorry to interrupt, but how long are we going to be staying like this?" asked Rhoda. "I'm not in a hurry to get out, and I'm rather enjoying myself, at least swimming and floating. It is quite a nice change of pace to swim underwater and actually see the fishes and not grasp for air and other sorts of occasional hazards related to water," said Gentivius, also swimming. And it was the first time I had seen him express a genuine human emotion, and I suppose that this difficult manner was rooted in the fact that he was bored out of his mind most of the time. And we all started speaking when we became aware of a strange sound, and it started like a low murmur that escalated to the sound of rippling water, and it was the faint sound of the waves combined with the sound of foam bubbling. And the fishes started looking at the chorus as if they were speaking to them, and it was then that Deasura manifested, and her voice and those of her parties combined into one. And whatever they said to one another, or even if they said anything, is indeed a matter of debate. And as much as I want to know what they say, they belong to the brain-dead species community, like the astute jellyfishes, and one cannot get any mental information on those creatures. And like most major problems in the world, this one was fixed by my dear brother. And all those creatures who get too big for their britches get tagged by him in the same unceremonious fashion. And like a whale shark gulping up a bunch of krill, my brother appeared from the bottom up and swallowed out the creepy ship. And the ship fell back, which made him regurgitate the monstrosity, however the damage was done, and they were poisoned by the sticky substance he was always eating. And they sank towards the hole my brother had entered from, and a whirlpool was created in the true ocean above. And we were still wave-washing the scene from the protected area created by the polyps. And once the hole had finally shut, the polyps released everyone from its area. Back outside, Leech and the interior manifested inside the shark-infested water, and after getting almost bitten a couple of times, they were safely back in the ship. And it was at that moment that I realized that the polyps had a sense of humor. Month 6, Day 1, Year 5. Today we ran into a bit of a problem, and I heard that the winter tends to last longer in the north. However, we did not expect to see roaming ice, so to speak, and the winter is going to be overall harsh all around the globe, and I saw a few snowflakes here and there. And the twins steered away from the icy area with much difficulty, and Sasha spent most of his time underwater making quick mental maps of our surroundings and sending them to Europe. And though the progress was slow, they managed to avoid sinking, and the only outside was that these cold waters were rich in nutrients, and the fishes here were exceptionally good as long as you know how to find them. And I got acquainted with some of the local orcas, and orcas tend to have poor temperament, and some can even be arbitrarily murderous. And after offering them a hunted seal, they open up pretty quickly, and they inform me of the best fishing spot and a normal migration habit of the humans, and they are always keen to keep an eye on humans, and the mother has spent her early life as a human pet, and she would have starved to death if the silver dragons had not set her free. And since then she has raised her human awareness among the dolphin species. And they would starve me whenever I refused to jump for them, said Katsara. And then in my trainer, they looked at me as if I was the jerk. Yeah, you did the right thing, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, I said, petting Katsara's fin. And I always wonder about the petting, thought Katsara. What about the petting, I asked. Well, with all of the touching, humans pet their dogs, the birds, and all other creatures, and it's so unsettling, said Katsara. It's fun, and you're having fun, I asked, smiling. And to show me fun, Katsara lightly bit the tip of my feet and set me down below, and she brought me back up and then back down again, and she was showing off how much she could hold her breath, and when she let me go, I dived deep and staying under till Katsara was forced to return to the surface. And I like Katsara, she's a lot of fun, and after feeding her some of our cats, she had one of her granddaughters lead us to shore, and she was the odd duckling of the gang, literally speaking, and her frame was slender, and her flippers elongated like hands or fins, and she had the neck for starters, and the head was small with horns on the forehead, and the bizarre-looking killer whale led us to the shore and even got out of water by the dogs, using her flipper-like legs to raise her frame, and the fishermen were surprisingly nonchalant about the creature. And based on memory fragment, this scene used to lead to the dogs, those who were nice to her pod. The shooters were goodbye at the whales, and she splashed her tail and side to side as salutation. It was the first time in months we had seen land. And after docking, they tried to battle with the locals, however their efforts were slowed down by the differences in language. And it has not even occurred to them that there could be other languages aside from English. And Leaf had suspected it somewhat and knew that demons and dragons had their own languages, and it made sense to him that given enough distance, human languages would vary. And we traded our fish for wood and whale fat for repairs, and we also purchased craft beer for our drunkards and sweets for the children. And the market, though rustic, was alive and well, and it was a mercantilism economy with no currency. And the cheese that had stored away flew well with the local market, and the cold climate of the region limited the production of beef to the southernmost region, and as such milk and its cheese byproduct was a much desired commodity. In using cheese as a currency, I was able to stock up on precious metals Karina had been bothering me about. And back in the other country, mining was regulated by the guilds, nobles, and lords, and every piece of stone and metal was always accounted for by rigorous bookkeeping. And as such, it was hard to acquire precious metals like copper or iron if you lacked the proper relations. And married to the merchant guilds, one could only acquire metal tools of war and peace by purchasing them, and whatever was bought was locked with your name and local affiliation. And it was in the setting of arts that the magic uses of the towers were deemed useful, and they would create a sort of magical barcode invisible to human eyes, and with this code they could regulate the sale of arms. And according to Karina, control over weapons was starting to become more rigorous with each passing day, and even kitchen knives and metal pots were under scrutiny. And after purchasing whatever pieces of metals each merchant had, I went to look for a crossroad in the tiny fishing hamlet. I know the roads were straight, so I went into the forest to have a look around, and I found here and there, a few animal trails, but none that formed the desired X shape. And eventually I found Karina under her old willow tree, just looking through her documents. And Karina looked and dressed like in a green dress with her curly black hair and hoop earrings. And waving at Karina, I said to her, "Fancy meeting you here." "And I'm just surprised as you," I said, Karina, putting her papers away. And normally I limit my range to places where I send souls and intelligent lands. For however reason race have for me to try different rendezvous locations in places where old crossroads lie buried, explained Karina. So there's an old road under the forest, I asked. "Most likely, and there are volcanoes in the vicinity. Perhaps there is a city buried under the ash," said Karina, looking around. "We could dig and find out," I suggested, and one of the willow demons interjected, "And let's not open that old can of worms. And you know what happens if you dig deep enough in certain places? It doesn't feel like other places. It's close to the surface in this location," I said, leaning down and placing my hand flat against the ground. And sighing, the demon said, "I will go get the shovels." "Ah, so there is something down there," exclaimed Karina. "Nah," said the demon, shrugging his shoulder. And to say time, Karina changed into her astral form and sank on the ground, and she was gone for like half an hour, and when she came back, she looked quite perturbed. And I asked her, "So, what did you see?" "I saw one of those old underground military training facilities from the forgotten second generation. And records from those days did show that this planet was undergoing treatments for terraforming. However, they were never successful," explained Karina. "They must have had some semblance of success to have bothered to build a military base," I said thoughtfully. "I don't know, maybe a segment of it seeped through the power of that other place. And in any case, we can make use of this facility in case our luck scramble, and I would inform my Duke of his location and tell him to keep an eye out for other such places," said Karina, departing. I was left alone to ponder on the mystery of these underground bases, and even after analyzing Karina's virtue, there was something felt odd. It was a surreal explanation of how this world was built and made habitable in certain day. All in all, it's all just not worth getting into. And the base was there, and now we had to live with it or give it to the destruction treatment. And I left my care packages of bronze, copper, and iron with the willow demon, and he promised to deliver it to my sister before dusk. And contrary to logic, demons are always true to their word, even if they do lie a lot. So if they promise you something, you are sure as hell they will follow through on their promise. And when I came back from the woods, my friends had found lodging in a big tent. And the big tent was where the figurehead of the villagers lived, and it also served as something of an inn. And there was not much room for privacy or room at all. At least there was a strong fire at the heart of the tent and plenty of bells to ward off the cold. And even though we were at the start of the spring, the weather was rather frozen. If it got any colder, it would snow, and it did snow from time to time during the winter, so my companions were not making a big deal about the possibility of snow. And we spent our time conversing with the elder and his dozen or so bodyguards, his 3 wives, and a little of 10 children and 4 grandchildren. And even though we were foreigners, they were treated us with kindness, and based on partial memories, this was due to our relationship with the bizarre whale. And she had a sense about people and would only get well with those without violent intent, and they shouldn't have bizarre little songs which I emulated for my own amusement. And after a while, I ended up singing all by myself, which was pretty annoying since I did not know the lyrics, and I started filling the gaps with arias that follow in general tone of the song. And since we were all staring at me, I quieted down. And you then commented, "Our mer people may become mermaids, but you are the only one who behaves like a true mermaid. Man, give me enough time and I will lure away sailors to rust to watch them drown for my own amusement," I said sarcastically. "I was trying to give you a compliment," she said, Jura, pouting. "Whatever, dude," I said, wrapping myself up inside a polar bear pelt. And I smiled when I noticed that there wasn't any fox spells in the mix. And as night progressed, it came time for the children to go to sleep, and most of the camp had already gone to slumber after supper. And the only people awake were the small children of our party, and they came to me, as they did sometimes, and asked for a bedtime story. And the one who had started it was a girl named Farah, and she was not part of the orphanage, but rather lived in the street before joining my party. And her home, if you call it that, was buried under a landslide. and she only managed to save her own skin and her prized possession, although she had stolen from a noble home, and she had used it in a little mini puppet play for her bedtime story. And I had to play part, and one of the children were afraid to fall asleep. And it is a primordial fear that every human possesses, and the fear of waking up tomorrow in the everyday of nothing. And even I too dread the possibility of falling into a type of rut. And in any case, after rummaging the ashes, I chose one story that was not particularly long or interesting, and I wanted them to stop asking me for stupid stories. In a kingdom filled with giant animals with long ears, teeth, nose, there lived a prince who was very much beloved, and his father wanted to give the prince a life of supreme happiness. And this he managed till the prince was stupid enough to get out of the castle, and during his first and last hunting expedition he saw an old man, and he had never seen an old man, and the sight deeply troubled him. And as he made his way through town, he saw sick people and poor people and all sorts of people. He had ignorance of them, and at the time his father made light of the incident, and neither the nobles nor the ruling class cared about the suffering of the little people. And this was not so for the prince, and the thought of growing old and getting sick shocked him, and he was also felt sorry for the people who had to suffer through it. And instead of dedicating his life to the poor or forgetting about them, he took a path that no one had ever followed. And it started with a singly drop which grew into an ocean that swallowed him whole. What, said one of the kids starting to fall asleep. I mean, he had a stupid idea, and the stupid idea was that he would never have known suffering if he had never existed in the first place. And as a prince, he was well versed in the arts of war, and he knew that violence was inevitable, and there might even be the eventuality that his kingdom would crumble, or that he would be killed in defending his father's ideals, and the thought of going through any suffering chilled him to the core. So what did the prince do? Kill himself as Farah? He doesn't, for you see, he has already suffered, and he knows that he will suffer during the process of dying, and even after he dies, I explained. Is that why all ghosts moan as Farah? Nah, that's just a fact that some idiot started. And I then continue. During his quest to erase his existence, the prince obtained many followers who were drawn to his way of thinking, and it was not enough to die. The soul had to die as well, and the soul should have never existed in the first place. And eventually, inside the prince, a creature was born of his desire to not resist, and this creature erased all his thought, his consciousness, his very essence, and indeed the man known as the prince no longer exists. And the irony was that the creature was born in a place in his place wanted nothing else but to continue to persist, and it would utterly erase anything that might threaten his newfound happiness, and the creature did eventually erase his own existence. And he became a phantom memory, a curse in the collective mind of his followers, and a thing that never really existed to begin with, but a figment of their imagination. However, they did not stop them from trying to follow the prince's footsteps, and there was one thing that they did manage to forget, and the last words he spoke before he changed. Until this day, the followers of the prince continue to wage war on those who choose to exist in the misguided attempt to save us all from suffering. And what was the last words of the prince? Asked Farah. Who the hell knows or cares? He's the bane of our existence, and so him and all of his followers will be nothing more than stuff on nightmare that fill pages of fiction. I said, tugging her in, and her doll as well. And close to midnight, Leaf went to see me by the harbor, and he always knew that I liked to hang out by the shore whenever I was in a foul mood. And sitting beside me, he asked, that story you thought, it is about damn it, wasn't it? There is no damn Leaf anymore, and you fail to see the entire point of the story, I said, smiling. And pray do tell me, what is the point, as Leaf? The point is that obsessing about something that does not really exist belongs to the realm of madness. And you do not want to be mad, do you, Leaf? I asked, giving him a sardonic smile. I feel that it is a little bit too late for that, he said thoughtfully, and we were silent for a few minutes, and then he said, I wonder how Lorraine is faring. Now I know you must be going insane, I said, laughing, and looking at the stars, I noticed that it was one of the few times when Rainbow was usable. And after a quick summoning, Rainbow informed Liz of what was happening to Lorraine, and the days before my escape she had heeded Liz's warning and left for Aragon, and she was not there when the new city was set aflame, and there was all the strategic attacks aimed at the forts and the armories and any place that had collection of soldiers and weapons, and the warship too met similar fate, except that for the latter gave me the roundabout, and Rainbow gave me the good news that, as far as my brother was concerned, I had finally completed the task he had given me. Alright, that's the end of this chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.